Hi everybody, and welcome to our first episode of the Gaelic Faith. This week I'm going to discuss a topic that was on the Irish Examiner last week by Neil Ewing about using post-primary schools as a base for development squads. So can we replace the development squad system with post-primary schools, and their resources, etc., etc. So I know, no, I will say in context to Neil that he probably only had 500-600 words to play with, so he obviously wasn't able to go into much depth on the whole thing. But he did give some really good examples of why the development squad system is a small bit problematic and how it can be made a little bit easier for the child, parents, the family unit as a whole. Um, so I suppose like the first thing that I suppose I asked this question a couple of years ago. Is what's the purpose of development squads or talent academies? Like, is it purely to produce that two or three players that want to play senior, or is there more to it? So you'll see they'll throw out various counties will put out, oh, we're developing the player, blah blah blah. But in reality, is it actually really about that? Is it actually what they're actually doing? Are they the values that they hold strong and they use on a day-to-day basis when they're working in that development squad, talent academy stroke environment? Okay, so talent academies generally from 14, 15, 16. The GA, by the very nature, starts preparing a bit earlier. So at under 13, they start doing an introduction to talent academies. So I've been a GDA. I was a GDA in Cork for 11 years and in Dublin as a GPO for 6 years. And I would have been involved with talent academies of both counties. And I suppose one of the things that like you develop as you go on is that you start questioning, what are we actually doing here? What's the reality of the outcomes and the output of this? Um, so to the topic that was discussed, okay, and I suppose look, the first thing that needs to be taken into account is that in an ideal world, yes, you could do something very much like that. There's no reason why you can't do that to an extent, but in reality, it's actually not that possible. It's not possible to do it on a whole island-wide scale that every secondary school is getting the same resources to use as mini development squad. Um, Small counties, such as Sligo, like I think there's 10 secondary schools in Sligo, eight small to medium at best, and then you've got St. Attractors in Tubbercurry, which would be a big enough school. I think it might be 300 to 400 boys there, I'm not exactly sure. And I know Summerhill College then in Sligo Town has over 1,000 boys in there. So um, putting something in place for Summerhill College and for Grange or Coola or Eastkey or Inniscrone secondary schools is going to be very difficult to be able to put one model in place. So probably a hybrid is what's needed. Now, I'm going to give an example of the hybrid in a second, but I just want to go through a couple of things as well first. So the first thing you have to realize is the secondary schools, post-primary schools, is their principal board of management GA is not a priority. Now there is a lot of schools where they do put a large focus on it, and it's part of their identity. That they're a strong hurling school or a football school, and that's part of their identity. And even the recruitment of staff would be very much, yeah, they might put someone willing to coach a little bit higher up on the pile than someone who's not willing to coach, or someone with a Gaelic games background or a rugby background in rugby schools, or a soccer background in soccer schools, etc., etc. So like it's just part of it that they see that person could bring more value to the school. Um, you could have huge disparity within. So let's just say we said, right, all schools, we want you to be the development squads. We want you to train X amount of times, blah, blah, blah. You're going to have huge fight back straight away. Because one, nobody tells teachers what to do during in their environment. It's their environment. They built it up. They're part of it. So we can't go up to St. Cairns. No, I know Kilkenny as GA wouldn't obviously be this stupid, but they're not going to go up to St. Cairns and go, oh, we're going to give you a coach now, two coaches that does these four age groups. We're going to provide an S&C coach, and we're going to take over the run of the school teams. And they're going to go, one second, we've been doing this for years. Why would we change what we're doing? And there would be a fight back, and obviously the whole thing would fall apart. Okay, there'd be massive confrontation, and yeah, the trust between school and county would go out the window. What's happening to like St. Cairns and Kilkenny CBS, as an example, is they are already mini development squads within the county. And I'd say there's a really good level of communication and really good level of respect between them. Okay, so I'd say there's no the county aren't telling the school ever what to do, and vice versa, the school aren't telling the county what to do. There's just a good respect and good understanding and probably good lines of communication. Um, You go to other counties that might not be there. Okay, because I'd imagine Kilkenny are looking at it going, "Oh, geez, like look, if Cairns do this for 6 years with the lads, perfect. We can't ask for any more. That's an ideal setting. Playing Leinster A, playing All Ireland A, playing the top level hurling that they can get exposed to for large swaths of the year that just not really much else happening." Um, so use the Sligo, as I said, as an example. So we've got one team from each of those schools getting support at under 14, one team at each of those schools getting support at under 15, one getting 16. Now, some of those schools you might go to, there might only be 10 lads come training. And um, it's the reality of just the way it is. Okay. Some schools just don't have a strong Gaelic games ethos, and being able to change that is a huge challenge. Okay. So you could have Colin Crowley in school A in Bandon. You could have Sean Crowley, my brother, in school B in Bandon. One of them is getting huge exposure to really high level coaching, an awful lot of challenge games, opportunities to play better. The other isn't. The other goes out to training once or twice only. Numbers are terrible. The coach, the teacher gets demotivated by it, steps away, and the whole thing goes apart. The county board, gosh, look, we'll come in, we'll provide a coach fee. But the coach goes in there for 4 weeks and there's still only 6 or 7 turn up to train. The coach goes to the county board. Oh, that's just a waste of time. And they forget about it. And all of a sudden, you get a huge disparity between the two schools. Now, when I talk about schools being disparity, there's disparity within the age groups inside in a lot of schools. I've seen cases where you've had the under 14s training basically 30 or 40 times a year between matches and trainings and stuff like that, get togethers, let's say, and in one singular coach. And at under 15, 2 weeks before the championship, they do their trials, internal trials, training, one or two trainings, and go out and play the match. And they could get knocked out and they could be done a 3 week campaign is all it is. So it's very, very difficult to be able to match that. So like as I said, the county board can't go in and go, oh, we'll provide a coach for the 15s to train them. Because then the teachers go, well, look, no, we've been doing this for now for the last 10 years. This is the way we do it. We won that Munster title or Leinster title or Connacht title that year. So we're doing it right. So it's a very, very difficult area to be able to get across. No, I knew though that the likes of Wexford, and someone might correct and give proper update on this. Wexford have been providing S&C to a number of their secondary schools, and I don't know is it all their secondary schools, every single secondary school in Wexford, or is it just a couple of the tier ones that they might pick out that have an awful lot of development squad players? So Brian Cuthbert brought out, did a study on this back in, I think it was 2019, 2018, 2019, about linking the club to the school, to the development squads, and that we're never going to overburden the players. We're going to utilise the school's facilities and the access they have to them to get the players looked after within that environment. But then the question comes, are we just looking after the players on development squads? So if we're inside Middleton CBS, for example, I went there myself, so I'm going to use that as an example. Um, are we just going to look after the 16 lads on development squads and the other 8 lads that are on the school panel aren't getting this extra work? And, it wouldn't be a great look, I don't think. Similarly, if you go to one of the smaller schools, so let's say we'll use St. Coleman's Community College in Middleton, they might only have 2 or 3 lads in development squad. What kind of resources are they going to get to be able to help them? So is it those three plus 12 other fellas inside in that school? Because look, we might as well just do it for 18 of them as do it for 3 of them. So the ease of it is it's not that easy. No, I do think on a smaller scale, if you went to individual counties to roll it out, it would be possible. So as I said, Sligo could roll out something, package one for those 8 schools, the smaller 8 schools. They might have package two support structure for St. Attractors. They might have package three support structure for Summerhill, which might just be funding. It might be just giving enough money that they can go for an extra challenge game away for each of the teams, that they might have enough footballs or bibs, whatever it may be. It might be just providing high level coach education for the teachers that want to come in and learn more. But it's got to be a different package than the other ones. So when you start doing that, costs start going up. So how are we going to be able to manage that? And that's grand in small counties. But you look at like Cork, we've got over 50 schools. Dublin has over 50 schools. Kildare now has probably got a lot of schools. Same with Meath, all those kind of Eastern Board, expanding numbers of secondary schools. An expanding number of schools means more money for each school, more money for each place, and it costs more money to run the program. So then you're kind of going, okay, what about if we just put all the money that's there for the development squads currently? How can we use that better? You might get somewhere, okay? But you have to look at different packages per group, okay? And look, the other thing you have to be very conscious of is that if it does become just an exclusive, we only look after development squad players, schools are probably just going to say, no, look, we're okay. We don't want that as part of our thing. Sure, we've got another 10 lads there training. Why can't they do it as well? And then you go, okay, well, no, all of a sudden we've got 300 players in our development squad program. Um, so it's a very difficult one. I know it gets thrown out an awful lot by people, by GA people. Oh, the schools need to be doing more. The schools need to be more. I used to think like that. I used to think like, why don't we do a blitz every 3 weeks for hurling and every 3 weeks for football and get every fellow who wants to play football in these schools come out. And if you bring out 4 teams, so be it. We'll facilitate you in a 12-a-side blitz or whatever it may be. But you have to think about the cost, the time, and all these things that the principal and board of management are going, "Well, no, 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 no. You can't be going out 10 times a year in participation blitzes. That's not feasible. Um, so can you run stuff in locally? Can we do it on a smaller scale? And it's just we have to realize that we can't just demand secondary schools or colleges or primary schools do what the GA think is good practice because it's not our baby. We are a part of their curriculum. We're a part of their identity, but that's all it is. We are a small part. Education is number one. Teaching the kids all the parts that are going to help them get the best amount of points in the leaving cert is probably more important. So just to summarize, I suppose the idea is very good. It's something that I'd love to be able to see rolled out in some capacity, but it does need a much broader discussion on what the reality of it looks like. Um, just I mentioned the hybrid model of different packages for different schools. I remember my brother Sean did mention this a couple of years ago when he was a GDA in Cork about wanted to trial something that we'd identified the six tier one schools in hurling at under 14, and none of those players could be part of the development squad. And we'd had four other regions as part of it. And in every midterm break, Easter break, and stuff like that, all those schools would come in and they would take part in a games program with those regional development squads from the other regions. So West Cork would have bar maybe Hammies and Bandon or Coachford now in Muskerry. They wouldn't have any other schools playing A level hurling on a consistent basis. And they need a development squad because if they don't get that exposure that the boy in Middleton or the boy in Fermoy is getting on a weekly basis in school, they're going to fall further and further behind. So you got to be very cautious about the whole thing. That plan never came to fruition, unfortunately, because it would have saved an awful lot of driving for parents. It would have saved an awful lot of early Saturday mornings. It would have saved an awful lot of late Friday nights going to gym sessions, S&C, functional movement, whatever terms may be used these days. But the idea of it is very good and sound, but you have to be cautious of the inequalities that still may exist within even that. Okay, if a group and the under 14 coaches in middle CBS are a lot better than the coaches in school Y, there's going to be a problem because those boys in school Y didn't want to go to the development squad because they're getting more training there. They're missing out because they're only training once a week, whereas other schools are training twice a week, and then it's just going to cause conflict. So the idea is sound, but the reality is just a long, long, long way away. So, look, I'd love to hear people's thoughts on it. I do think it's a brilliant topic that Neil brought up to be discussed because it is something that could be utilised better. There could be better relationships because there is just a big gulf between county board and schools at the moment, and in most counties. So, how could we have a more harmonious relationship where there's supports provided? Um, but as I said, just got to be conscious. School GA is never the number one priority. It's down the list on the principal's head, vice principal's head. It's somewhere, but it's not going to be in the top three or four. We have to be aware of that as GA people when we start thinking about what we can ask of them. Okay. Thanks, everybody.